Then, when it was the 16th night, she continued, I have heard, O auspicious king, that the dervish told the lady of the house. When I knew for certain that I had killed him, I got up, climbed the stairs and replaced the soil. Then I looked out to sea and caught sight of the ship making for the shore. I said fearfully, Now they will come and find the boy dead. They will know that it was I who killed him, and they will be bound to kill me. I made for a high tree, which I climbed, concealing myself among the leaves, and scarcely had I settled there than the black slaves and the youth's old father disembarked, and went towards the hidden chamber. They cleared away the earth, found the trapdoor, and went down. There they found the youth apparently asleep, his face glowing with the effect of his bath, dressed in clean clothes but with the knife plunged into his breast. They shrieked, wept, struck their faces, wailing and lamenting. The old man fainted for so long that the slaves thought that he would not survive his son. They wrapped the corpse of the youth in his clothes, covered him in a silken sheet, and returned to the boat. Behind them came the old man, but when he saw his son laid out, he fell to the ground, poured earth on his head, struck his face and plucked out his beard, while the thought that his son had been killed caused his tears to flow faster, and he fainted again. One of the slaves got up and spread a piece of silk on a couch, upon which they laid the old man, and then sat by his head. While all this was going on, I was in the tree above them, watching what was happening. Because of the cares and sorrows that I had suffered, my heart turned gray before my hair, and I recited, How many hidden acts of grace does God perform whose secrets are too subtle to be grasped by clever men? How often in the morning trouble comes, while in the evening follows joy. How many times does hardship turn to ease, as pleasure follows the sad heart's distress. The old man did not recover from his swoon until it was close to evening. Then, looking at the body of his son, he saw that what he had feared had come to pass. He slapped his face and his head and recited these lines. The loved ones left me with a broken heart, and floods of tears rain from my eyes. My longing is for what lies distant, but alas, how can I reach this? What can I say or do? I wish that I had not set eyes on them. What can I do, my masters, in these narrow paths? How can I find my solace in forgetfulness? The blazing fire of love plays with my heart. I wish we had been joined by death in an inseparable link. In God's name, slanderer, go slow, join me with them while this can still be done. How pleasantly we were sheltered by one roof, living a life of constant ease, until arrows of separation struck and parted us. And who is there with power to endure them? A blow struck us through the dearest of all men, perfect in beauty, unique in his age. I called him, but the silent voice preceded me. My son, would that your fate had not arrived. How may I rush to ransom you, my son, with my own life, were that acceptable? I say, he is the sun, and the sun sets. I say, he is the moon, and moons decline. The days bring sorrow and distress for you. I cannot do without you. None can take your place. Your father longs for you, but you are dead, and he is helpless. The envious look at us today to see what they have done. How evil was their deed. At that, with a deep sigh, his soul parted from his body. O master, cried the slaves, and pouring dust on their heads, they wept more and more bitterly. Then they put his body on the ship beside that of his son, and, unfurling the sail, they passed out of sight. I came down from the tree, went through the trapdoor, and thought about the youth. Seeing some of his belongings, I recited, I see their traces and so melt with longing, weeping in places where they used to dwell. I ask God, who decreed that they should leave, that one day he may grant that they return. I then went out and passed my time wandering around the island by day and going into the underground chamber by night. In this way a month went by, and, as I looked out over the western tip of the island, I could see that with every day that passed the water was drying up. Eventually there was very little of it left to the west, and there was no longer any current. By the end of the month, To my joy, the sea had dried up in that direction, and, sure that I was now safe, I got up and waded through what water was left until I reached the mainland. There I encountered sand dunes in which camels would sink up to their hocks, but steeling myself, I managed to cross them, and then far off I caught a glimpse of a fire burning brightly. I made for it, hoping to find relief. Meanwhile I recited, "It may perhaps be that time will direct its rains towards some good, but time is envious. Were it to aid hopes and fulfill my needs, it might bring pleasure after this distress." When my course brought me nearer, I saw a palace with a door of brass which, when the sun shone on it, gleamed from a distance like fire. I was delighted at the sight, and sat down opposite the door. Scarcely had I taken my seat when there came towards me 10 young men, wearing splendid clothes, with a very old companion. All the young men had lost their right eyes, and I was astonished by their appearance, and at this coincidence. When they saw me they greeted me and asked me about myself and about my story. They were amazed when I told them what had happened to me and of my misfortunes, and they then brought me into the palace. Ranged around the hall were 10 couches, each spread with and covered in blue material. In the middle of these was a small couch whose coverings, like those of the others, was also blue. When we entered the room, each of the young men went to his own couch and the old man went to the small one in the middle. He told me to sit down, but warned me not to ask questions about him and his companions or why they were one-eyed. He then brought food for each man in one container and drink in another, and he did the same for me. After that, they sat asking me about my circumstances and my adventures, and their questions and my replies took up most of the night. Then they said, "Sheikh, bring us our due." "Willingly," the old man replied, and after going away into a closet, he came back carrying on his head 10 trays, each with a covering of blue, and gave one to each of the young men. Then he lit 10 candles, fixing one to each tray, and removed the covers. There beneath the covers on the trays was nothing but ashes and grime from cooking pots. All the young men rolled up their sleeves and, with tears and sobs, they smeared and slapped their faces, tore their clothes and beat their breasts, saying, "We were seated at our ease but our inquisitiveness did not leave us." They went on doing this until it was nearly morning, when the old man got up and heated water for them with which they washed their faces before putting on fresh clothes. When I saw this, I said, "I am astonished, amazed and afire with curiosity." I forgot what had happened to me and, unable to keep silent, I asked them, "Why have you done this, after we had become pleasantly tired? You are men of sound minds, praise be to God, and it is only madmen who act like this. I implore you by what you hold dearest to tell me your story, and why you have lost your eyes and why you smear your faces with ashes and grime." They turned to me and said, "Young man, do not be led astray by your youth and do not press your question." Then they got up and so did I, after which the old man brought out food, and when we had eaten and the plates had been removed, they sat talking until nightfall. The old man then rose and lit candles and lamps, before bringing us food and drink. We sat talking in a friendly way to one another until midnight. "Bring us our due," they then told the old man, "as it is time for sleep." He brought the trays with the black ashes and they did what they had done on the first night. The same thing went on for a whole month while I stayed with them, as every night they would smear their faces with ashes before washing them, and then changing their clothes. I was astonished at this and became more and more uneasy, to the extent that I could neither eat nor drink. "Young men," I said, "you must satisfy my concern and tell me why it is that you smear your faces." They said, "It is better to keep our secret hidden," but as I was too perplexed to eat or drink, I insisted that they tell me. "This will go hard with you," they replied, "as you will become like us." "There is no help for it," I said, "unless you allow me to leave you and go back to my family, so that I may no longer have to watch all this. As the proverb has it, it is better for me to be far away from you, for what the eye does not see the heart does not grieve over." At this, they took a ram, slaughtered it and skinned it, then told me to take a knife, wrap the skin around me and sew it up. They went on, A bird called a rook will swoop on you and lift you up, before setting you down on a mountain, where you should slit open the skin and come out. The bird will be scared away from you and will go off, leaving you alone. Walk on for half a day and you will find in front of you a strange-looking palace. Enter it, and you will have achieved what you wanted, as it was because we went into it that we blacken our faces and each of us has lost an eye. It would take a long time to explain all this, as each of us has a tale to tell of how his right eye was plucked out. I was pleased when I heard this, and after I had done what they had instructed, the bird came and carried me off, leaving me on the mountain top. I got out of the skin and walked on until I reached the palace, where I found 40 girls, beautiful as moons, at whom no one could tire of looking. On seeing me, they all greeted me warmly. "We have been expecting you for a month," they said, "and praise be to God who has brought us one who deserves us and whom we deserve." They seated me on a high dais and said, "Today you are our lord and master, and we are your slave girls, under your command, so give us your orders." I was astonished by all this, but they brought me food and we ate together, after which they fetched drink. They clustered around me and 5 of them spread out a mat around which they set out quantities of scented flowers, together with fruits, fresh and dried. Then they brought wine and we sat down to drink as they sang to the music of the lute. The wine circulated, and such was my delight that I forgot all worldly cares. "This is the life," I said, and I stayed with them until it was time to sleep. "Take whichever of us you choose to sleep with you," they said. So I took one of them, with a beautiful face, dark eyes, black hair, well-spaced teeth, perfect in all aspects, with joining eyebrows, like a supple bough or a sprig of sweet basil, astonishing and amazing the mind. As the poet has said, "It shows ignorance to compare her to a tender branch, and how far is she unlike a gazelle. How can the dear gazelle have a form like hers or honeyed lips like hers, how sweet a drink, or her wide eyes, that act as murderers, capturing the desperate lover, tortured and then slain. I yearn for her, mine is a heathen love, no wonder that the lovesick is in love." I recited to her, "My eyes see nothing but your loveliness. Apart from you no thought enters my heart, for every thought of mine is fixed on you. In your love is my death and my rebirth." I then got up and spent a night of unsurpassed pleasure sleeping with her. In the morning, the girls took me to the baths, washed me and gave me the most splendid of clothes to wear. Then they brought out food and drink and we ate and drank, the wine circulating until nightfall. This time I chose another lovely, pliant girl. As the poet describes, "I saw upon her breast 2 caskets sealed with musk, withheld from any lover's grasp, guarded with arrows she shoots from her eyes, arrows that strike down any who attack." I passed the most delightful of nights, sleeping with her until dawn. In short, my lady, I spent a whole year with these girls, enjoying a carefree life, but as the next year began, they said, "Would that we had never known you, but if you listen to us you can save yourself." They then started to weep, and when I asked them what the matter was, they explained, "We are the daughters of kings, and we have been gathered together here for a period of years. We go away for 40 days and then stay here for a year, eating, drinking, enjoying ourselves and taking our pleasure, after which we go off again. This is our custom, and we are afraid that when we leave you, you will not do what we tell you. Here are the keys of the palace, which we are handing over to you. In the palace are 40 rooms, 39 of which you may enter, but you must take care not to open the door of the 40th, or else you will be forced to leave us." "If that is so," I said, "then I shall certainly not open it." One of them then came to me, embraced me, wept and recited the lines, If after separation we come close again, the frown upon time's face will turn into a smile. If a sight of you serves as coal for my eyes, I shall forgive time all its evil deeds." Then I recited, When she came close to say farewell, she and her heart were allies there to longing and to love. She wept moist pearls, while my tears, as they flowed, were like carnelians, forming a necklace on her breast. On seeing the girl's tears, I swore that I would never open the forbidden room, and after I had said goodbye, they went outside and flew away. So I sat in the palace by myself, and when evening approached, I opened the door to the first chamber and went in. There I found a virtual paradise, a garden with green trees, ripe fruits, tuneful birds and gushing waters. I felt at rest as I walked among the trees, smelling sweet-scented flowers and listening to the song of the birds as they glorified the one God, the Omnipotent. I looked at apples whose color was midway between red and yellow, as the poet has said. An apple's nature has combined two shades, the beloved's cheek and the complexion of the timorous lover. Then I looked at quinces that put to shame the scent of musk and ambergris, as the poet has said. Within the quince are all mankind's delights. Its fame surpasses every other fruit. Its taste is wine and its scent diffused musk, golden in color, shaped like the full moon. I then looked at apricots whose beauty delighted the eye like polished rubies, and after that I left the chamber and locked the door again. Next day I opened the door to the second chamber, went in and found a large space, with date palms and a flowing stream whose banks were carpeted with rose bushes, jasmine, marjoram, eglantine, narcissus and gillyflowers. Breezes passed over these scented flowers and the scent spread in all directions, filling me with perfect happiness. I left this chamber, locked the door behind me and opened the third. Here I found a hall, paved with colored marble, valuable minerals and precious stones. In it were cages of sandalwood and aloes wood, with singing birds, such as the nightingale, the ringdove, blackbirds, turtle doves and the Nubian song thrush. I was delighted by this. My cares were dispelled and I slept there until morning. Then I opened the fourth door to discover a large chamber with 40 closets, whose doors were standing open. I went in and saw an indescribable quantity of pearls, sapphires, topazes, emeralds and other precious stones. In my astonishment I exclaimed, "I do not think that there is a single king who has all this in his treasury." Joy filled me, my cares leaving me, and I said, "I am the supreme ruler of the age. My wealth is a gift granted me by God's grace. The 40 girls are under my authority, and they have no other man besides me." I went from place to place until 39 days had passed, during which time I had opened all the rooms except for the one whose door I had been told not to open. This one, which made the number up to 40, preoccupied me and, in order to bring me misery, Satan incited me to open it. I could not hold out against this, and so with only one day left before the girls were due to return, I went to the chamber, opened the door and went in. I found a fragrance the like of which I had never smelt before. It overcame my senses and I fell down in a faint, which lasted for an hour. Then I plucked up my courage and went further into the room, whose floor I found spread with saffron. Light was given by lamps of gold and candles from which was diffused the scent of musk and ambergris, and I saw 2 huge censers, each filled with aloes wood, ambergris and honeyed perfume whose scent filled the room. I saw a horse, black as darkest night, in front of which was a manger of clear crystal, filled with husked sesame, together with a similar manger filled with rosewater scented with musk. The horse was harnessed and bridled, and its saddle was of red gold. When I saw this, I was astonished and said to myself, "There must be something of great importance here." Satan led me further astray, and so I took hold of the horse and mounted it. It didn't move, and so I kicked it, and when it still refused to move, I took the whip and struck it. As soon as it felt the blow, it neighed with a sound like rumbling thunder, and, opening up a pair of wings, it flew off with me, carrying me up into the sky way above the ground. After a time, it set me down on a flat roof and whisked its tail across my face, striking out my right eye and causing it to slide down my cheek. It then left me and I came down from the roof to find the 10 one-eyed youths. "No welcome to you," they said. "Here I am," I replied. "I have become like you, and I want you to give me a tray of grime with which to blacken my face and to let me sit with you." "No, by God," they said, "you may not do that. Get out." They drove me away, leaving me in dire straits, thinking over the misfortunes that had overtaken me. I was sad at heart and tearful when I parted from them, and I said to myself in a low voice, I was resting at my ease, but my inquisitiveness would not leave me. So I shaved off my beard and whiskers and wandered from place to place. God decreed that I should remain safe, and I reached Baghdad yesterday evening, where I found these two men standing in perplexity. I greeted them and introduced myself as a stranger. We too are strangers, they said, so we agreed to go together, all of us being dervishes and all being blind in the right eye. This, lady, is why I am clean-shaven and have lost my eye. You can touch your forelock and go, she told him, but he replied, not before I have heard what these other people have to say. The lady of the house then turned to the Caliph, Ja'far and Masrur and said, tell me your story. Ja'far came forward and told her the story that he had told to the doorkeeper when they entered, and when she heard this, she allowed them all to leave. In the lane outside, the Caliph asked the dervishes where they were proposing to go, as dawn had not yet broken. When they said that they did not know, he told them to come and spend the night with him. Take them, he said to Ja'far, and bring them to me in the morning, so that we may write down what has happened. Ja'far did as he was told, and the Caliph went up to his palace, but found himself unable to sleep that night. In the morning, he took his seat on the imperial throne, and when his officials had assembled, he turned to Ja'far and told him to bring the 3 ladies, the 2 bitches and the 3 dervishes. Ja'far got up and brought them all, the ladies being veiled. Ja'far turned to them and said, you are forgiven because of your earlier kindness, although you did not know who we were. I can tell you now that you are standing before the 5th of the caliphs of the Banu Abbas, Harun al-Rashid, the brother of Musa al-Hadi and son of al-Mahdi Muhammad, the son of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, the son of Muhammad, the brother of al-Safa, son of Muhammad. You are to tell nothing but the truth. When the ladies heard what Ja'far had said as spokesman for the commander of the faithful, the eldest of them came forward and said to the Caliph, Commander of the faithful, mine is a story which, were it written with needles on the inner corners of the eyeballs of mankind, would serve as a warning to those who take heed and counsel to those who profit from counsel. Morning now dawned, and Shahrazad broke off from what she had been allowed to say.